The room fell silent. Every officer stared at her with disbelief as she lifted her sleeve. A tattoo peeked out, faded but unmistakable. Whispers spread like wildfire. "That's impossible. She couldn't have done this." Then, from the corner, the Admiral leaned forward, eyes narrowing, and quietly said, "That tattoo's real." Suddenly, everything she had claimed, every unbelievable story, snapped into sharp, undeniable truth. The air in the command center was thick with tension. Officers moved briskly between consoles, their radios crackling with static-filled orders. Yet, despite the organized chaos, all eyes turned toward the newcomer who had just stepped through the reinforced doors. She walked with a quiet confidence, but every step seemed to amplify the skepticism radiating from the room. Whispers rippled like a current through the officers. "Who is she? Does she even belong here? This is absurd." The murmurs grew louder as she approached the central table, where senior officials had gathered, their faces lined with doubt and authority. They had seen countless recruits, veterans, and imposters, but none had entered the room with such an air of mystery. She offered a polite nod, her expression calm, yet her eyes scanned the room with sharp precision, noting every reaction, every raised eyebrow, every subtle sign of mistrust. It was clear, they didn't believe her story. Not even close. Colonel Richards, a stern man known for his unflinching judgment, folded his arms. "Explain yourself," he demanded, his tone more accusatory than curious. "We've received your claims. Incredible missions, classified operations, yet no records. Why should we believe you?" She took a slow breath, steadying herself. The words she had rehearsed 100 times in her mind felt inadequate in the weight of their doubt. "I know it sounds impossible," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But every mission, every operation I've told you about, it's real. And there's proof, though it may not be obvious at first glance." A junior officer muttered under his breath, "Proof? What kind of proof could she possibly have?" The question, meant as sarcasm, only intensified the room's scrutiny. Every head turned toward her, waiting for something, anything, to validate her claims. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing a glimpse of faded ink that snaked along her forearm. The officers leaned in, squinting, their skepticism palpable. "That's nothing," one of them scoffed. But she didn't flinch. Her eyes held steady, a quiet determination emanating from her very posture. She knew they weren't ready yet. They needed to see it, the symbol of everything she had endured, every impossible mission she had survived. As the murmurs grew louder, the Admiral's gaze shifted. He had been observing silently from the corner, his face inscrutable. His fingers tapped against the edge of the table, each tap measured, deliberate. Slowly, he leaned forward, narrowing his eyes as he caught sight of the tattoo peeking from under her sleeve. A subtle pause settled over the room, a moment pregnant with anticipation. The officers didn't notice it yet, but the Admiral did. The tattoo wasn't just ink on skin, it was a map of a life few could imagine. Each line, each faded mark, carried a memory of missions that defied logic, challenges that should have broken her, and victories that were recorded in secret files hidden deep within classified archives. She rolled her sleeve further, revealing the intricate design. At first glance, it seemed like a simple pattern, abstract in its curves and swirls. But anyone trained to read the language of symbols would see the story it told: covert operations, behind enemy lines extractions, and the lives she had saved at unimaginable risk. The room was still skeptical, yet she could feel their attention sharpening, curiosity beginning to pierce their doubt. "This," she said, her finger tracing a line along the tattoo, "represents Operation Shadowlands, a mission that no one believed I survived, because no one knew I had completed it." Her voice didn't tremble, but inside, the memory burned like fire. She had been alone, deep in hostile territory, with nothing but her wits and training to rely on. Enemy patrols closed in, communications went dark, and every step forward was a step into the unknown. And yet, she had returned, not just alive, but with the objectives completed flawlessly. A murmur passed through the officers. One of the younger lieutenants leaned forward, almost involuntarily. That operation was deemed a total failure," he said. "The intel said everyone was lost." She gave a faint, knowing smile. "That's what they wanted you to believe." Records were erased, files locked away, and no medal was awarded. "But the proof of survival, and of success, is here," she said, tapping the tattoo gently. It wasn't arrogance. It was inevitability. Every line of ink symbolized a truth too extraordinary for most to comprehend. She had walked through fire and shadows, accomplished what others called impossible, and carried the evidence with her all along, hidden in plain sight. As she spoke, she could feel the officer's skepticism beginning to crack. The murmurs slowed, replaced with a mix of awe and confusion. Their minds raced, trying to reconcile the impossibility of her claims with the undeniable proof she now displayed. And yet, she remained calm. She didn't need their belief, at least, not entirely. The Admiral's gaze, sharp and discerning, had already found what mattered. The rest of the room could catch up when they were ready. She paused, letting the weight of her past settle into the room's consciousness. Every mission, every risk, every moment of solitude in enemy territory had led to this one instant, the moment where doubt could no longer hide the truth. Her tattoo wasn't just a mark, it was a testament. A silent announcement of everything she had endured and achieved, waiting for the right eyes to see it. And finally, those eyes were watching. The room's atmosphere shifted, almost imperceptibly at first. Officers who had moments ago dismissed her as an imposter now found themselves leaning forward, eyes narrowing as if the very air demanded their attention. The tattoo, once a vague symbol, now became a key unlocking a story too extraordinary to ignore. The Admiral remained silent, his face an unreadable mask. Yet, the subtle tilt of his head, the narrowing of his eyes, betrayed a spark of recognition. He had seen that symbol before, in places no ordinary officer could ever access. That tattoo wasn't just ink, it was proof of valor, of missions executed in shadows, of risks taken where even the bravest faltered. He rose from his chair, moving toward her with deliberate steps. Every officer in the room instinctively straightened, the gravity of the moment pressing down on them. When he stopped in front of her, the silence was almost deafening. Then, in a voice low enough that only a few could hear, he whispered, "That tattoo, it's real." The words fell like a gavel. A ripple ran through the room as disbelief wavered and or began to take its place. Eyes widened. Officers exchanged glances, murmurs growing into questions, then into stunned acknowledgement. "It can't be, she actually," one officer started, but stopped, the sentence dissolving in the weight of truth. The Admiral's gaze didn't waver. "She's who she says she is," he declared, louder this time, addressing the entire room. "Every mission, every impossible operation, documented or not, it's all true." Suddenly, the air felt lighter, though no less intense. Officers who had doubted her now approached cautiously. Curiosity mingled with respect. The murmur of disbelief transformed into admiration, even reverence. She didn't seek their approval, she merely stood, calm and steady, letting the truth speak louder than any words could. A young lieutenant stepped forward, voice barely above a whisper. I didn't believe it at first. But, that tattoo, it changes everything." She gave a faint nod, acknowledging not just the recognition, but the journey it represented. Every impossible mission, every shadowed victory, every quiet survival, it was all validated in that single moment of recognition. The Admiral returned to his seat, eyes still lingering on her, a subtle smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Prepare for the debrief," he said. "And make sure no one forgets what this symbol represents. Some truths are impossible to ignore once you see them." As she rolled her sleeve down, the room seemed to exhale collectively, a tension once so thick it had been suffocating now dissipating. She had arrived shrouded in doubt, armed only with the truth etched into her skin. And now, finally, that truth had spoken loud enough for all to hear. The officers, once skeptical, now looked at her with a mixture of awe, respect, and cautious admiration. The impossible had been proven real. And in that quiet, charged moment, the story she had lived began to ripple through the room, reshaping every doubt into understanding.